I'm going to talk a little bit about three literary works that deal with hunger. The first, the novel by Knut Hamsun, Hunger. The second is a Korean short story entitled Waesek Nunsaram, The Gray Snowman by Choi Yoon. And the third is a novelist, a Canadian novelist, arguably the first Canadian novelist, John Richardson. This was at a time when Canada was still a colony of the British Empire, and hunger is not dealt with specifically in the work that I'm going to talk about, Wakusta. Richardson enjoyed some success as a novelist. In fact, he enjoyed international fame at a time when that was particularly rare for writers, and that might have emboldened him to try and succeed simply as a writer. He spent much of his life as a career officer in the British Army. He had mixed race ancestry. His mother was half indigenous. He was interested in indigenous culture, indigenous people. He's been scolded by modern critics for being a little bit too harsh on his indigenous characters, for example, in Wakusta. However, that boldness, I suppose, does lend the novel a kind of energy. It tends to be, the writing style of the novel is quite overwrought at times, but there are some brilliant scenes in it. For example, there's one of an indigenous attack on a British fort, which is actually extremely well done. In any case, Richardson himself had a kind of connection, a kind of fellow feeling with indigenous peoples. He himself perceived himself that way. He witnessed slavery in the West Indies as part of his military career and was appalled by it. In any event, Richardson, after the success of this novel, he went to the United States, he went to New York City, and things didn't work out. He died a pauper. The likeliest explanation for his cause of death, because he died in his 50s, was starvation. And this brings me back to the theme of hunger. Hunger to the point of being near starvation is the theme in Knut Hamsun's novel. And in the short story, the Korean short story, Waesek Nunsaram, which I think is a wonderful story. It's one of the few works of literary fiction that really sends a shiver up my spine every time I read it. Is about a very difficult character who's on the run almost from her family. She's very sullen, she's antisocial, but in reality she's very insecure, and she has to leave her home because she steals this minor amount of something, and of course her family is appalled, thinks she's a terrible person, but she's desperate. And she ends up in the big city of Seoul, and she ends up working for a couple who are publishing anti-government leaflets, and they themselves are on the run because they might get picked up by the South Korean authorities. At that point, South Korea is a dictatorship. The reason it turns out that this couple is interested in this antisocial, desperate protagonist is because they want to use her identity to help forge a passport for the girlfriend of this man who's involved in anti-government activities. Their plot succeeds. The girlfriend, essentially, of this male anti-government activist does escape South Korea, and she ends up in New York City, but she has nowhere to turn to. And near the end of the story, she dies of starvation. In Knut Hamsun's novel, the main character obviously makes it. He writes the novel. These three works sort of thread together this idea of hunger, life, death, and the danger of starvation.